Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Crown and today we are going to have some more stories that I hope that you will enjoy. But before we start, it will be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go! The stories I'm going to narrate to you today are two stories I've posted on my main channel 2 years ago. And despite being read by a text-to-speech software at the time, that video of mine went to gain over 700,000 views. That before YouTube forced me to take down all of my videos a year ago. Anyways, I was interested in narrating those two stories now that I've started doing the narration myself. Some of you may have listened to them before, but one thing is for sure, you never heard me narrate them personally before. So I hope you're going to enjoy that. Let's go! First story. Karen gets put down by a soldier. So I, a 25-year-old soldier, was shopping for some food for dinner at the local supermarket. Usually I stop there 2 to 4 times a week on my way home in full uniform. That is why often some elderly people ask me to help them with things like getting them something from the top shelf or putting them a 6-pack of water bottles in their carts. Which is no problem for me at all, and often I ask them if they need help with putting it in their car as well. Cause well, it's no big deal for me. Now to the story. It was one day when I helped an old grandma put some heavy groceries in her car, and after I finished, I moved back to mine. When I heard the lady behind me with that typical Karen voice.
Now that you're done with her, you can help me shop.
Me, who is irritated because I'm dressed in full uniform, say politely, "No, sorry. I can't help you, as you can obviously see I don't work here." Clearly that was not the correct answer. She gets louder and says,
I pay taxes, so you work for me.
That's somehow true, but no. And I said that to her and just started to move over to my car. And that is when I felt a very hard grip on my shoulder. And out of reflex, I grabbed her arm and slammed her on the ground, which caused her a big bloody nose right away. After a lot of screaming from her and a large conversation with the shop staff and some surrounding people who called the police who looked at the CCTV, I decided to press charges on her for assaulting me. And on top of the charges, she ended up getting banned from the store as well. To all the bloody Karens out there, keep your hands to yourself. Next story. Entitled Lady Gets What She Deserves After Assaulting Me and Triggering a PTSD Episode. This is my first time posting, so if I do something incorrectly, let me know and please be gentle. Some context. This is the experience of a time I was just done with people for the day and it got really messy for work. I had to dress in upscale business attire with some antiquated ideas on ladies' wear. Like you must wear heels and nylons. I do any shopping or errands on my way home from work. It was years ago, so it will not be verbatim. Obviously, I don't have an eidetic memory. That day had been a long one due to my literally crazy boss. So while I was shopping, I had 2 people already ask me for help. It was an upscale mall, and I was dressed similarly to the store managers. The first 2 were polite and apologized for the honest mistake, and I was jovial about it since they were so nice. But this is the encounter, to the best of my recollection, with the third person. In under 15 minutes, I was walking away from the shoes to the ladies' lingerie area as I was shopping for nylons when the dreaded "excuse me" happened.
Excuse me?
Me knowing what's happening and what that tone meant, what kind of person probably parked so rudely and relatively loud, especially in a high-end department store. I was completely done with all the personal interactions for the day, but especially one that could be draining. So of course I ignore the entitled person, pretending I didn't hear her. But she was strident and very loud, and now she was moving much closer.
Excuse me.
She was setting me off already by being too close, and now I was whining in my head. So I sighed quite audibly on purpose. I turned around and said, "Yes?" She says,
You're the manager. Where is X, Y, and Z?
and no, I don't remember what it was she was looking for exactly. And I really didn't care, to be honest. I tell her, "I don't know, ma'am." She cuts me off before I can finish the "I don't work here" line.
Well, you should. I'm a frequent and a loyal customer. So,
And I kid you not, that woman actually started to show me the way. She was all indignant, wanting me to go find out as soon as possible. I was just standing there, blinking at her. She goes,
go find out already.
She was shouting directly in my face while spitting all over the place. I say with a dead-eyed expression, "Ma'am, I don't work here." And no, I didn't even care enough to expound upon that entitled person.
Well, you are the rudest employee I have ever encountered. Go get your boss.
Me frustrated and not caring anymore because she now had chewed and snapped her fingers at me, I say, "I am not an employee, so I'm not going to do anything but continue my own shopping. You should be ashamed of yourself for your inexcusable behavior." She seemed a bit confused, but she kept going with it.
Sure you aren't,
She said sarcastically.
just go find out. I'm running late and I need X, Y, and Z.
"Lady, I still don't work here." I turn around and just take off. And by the way, the employees at this store would never walk away from a shopper or be rude. Not ever. I can hear her getting even more aggravated as I leave. But well, I don't care. After a bit, I hear more screeching. She yells,
There she is.
pulling an employee behind her was just the magnetic force of her displeasure. I don't turn just knowing this is going to get ugly with the mood I'm in right now. The employee looks confused and a lot worried.
I want that manager's name now. She will be fired immediately. And also give me the corporate's number. This is disgraceful.
So I slowly turn around. I should warn that while I'm normally very tolerant and love to help older people who especially need it, I greatly dislike stupid, racist, or loudly ignorant people, and I kinda have a temper. Then she stepped into my space again. I hid that for a good reason. I tell her, "Ma'am," very obviously sarcastic, "for the last time, I do not work here." I step away and turn around again, trying to calm myself and avoid a catastrophe. Then it gets silent. Legit only the classical music they play in the background. I'm desperately trying to find the nylons quickly so I can get the items and get the heck out of there as soon as possible. Desperately trying to control my temper, I saw them and grabbed all they had. Like 5 of them, I don't know. Didn't even check them to ensure they were the correct sizes. And that's when it happened. That's when it all went to hell. She grabs my arm, pinching it hard as her hand slips on my silk blouse. I bruise easily. So it ended up being a huge doozy later. She grabbed me so hard she pulled a seam on the sleeve, and I think I still have it in the back of my closet. I never did wear it again, so I'm not positive. What the Karen didn't know that really escalated the situation drastically was me having extreme PTSD from being assaulted by a gang before. And any grabbing of my arms from behind me is a major and usually a very violent trigger. I instantly flash back. Sorry, this is hard for me to recount as even now I shake when thinking about it or the attack. This next part hubby told me since he watched the security tapes. Later I dropped my items, packed up into as good of a corner as I could, and started screaming in a panic. "No, don't touch me!" I slid down the wall at my back with my hands over my ears. I've gone into freeze and hide mode and kept repeating the word no. The entitled person then made the mistake of moving closer again in an aggressive manner. I remember some of this part. I looked up into her militia face and went straight into fight mode, standing up abruptly and into her face, screaming aggressively, "No, you don't get to hurt me!" I am not entirely present yet, but no, something's off as there are no men near me. This is a huge lucky break because any men near me at that moment would have immediately made me go berserk and attack. I'm still in my aggressive stance, but started saying something along the lines of, "Just leave me alone, go away," and such. Karen backed up, and I imagine she thought I was some crazy person, and she would have been correct right then. Somehow, the employee knew that I wasn't entirely there, that I was traumatized. Somehow my pupils were probably blown wide, and with the automatic sopping, my mascara was likely already streaked down my cheeks. Hubby said I looked haunted when he picked me up later, as I was too distraught to drive home. The employee calmed me down a little bit as I noticed I wasn't being attacked at that moment. And that's when security arrived to see me still sopping, shaken firmly on the throes of the panic attack from the flashback and adrenaline-crazed person problem. Security was all males. Sadly, that takes me back into the flashback. I go screaming and freaking out violently. I know they took the entitled person away at some point, and I hazily remember the employee sitting on the floor, cross-legged nearby, but not too close. She was talking to me in a soothing tone, but I don't remember what she said. For all I know, she was repeating some alien language. I wouldn't let anyone else anywhere near me. I was too hysterical. As I was starting to realize it was a flashback only, I started becoming more and more embarrassed and horrified at the same time. The employee got me to give her my phone to call my hubby. He told me later that he explained what likely happened and told him to put him on speaker. He started doing his "you are safe" routine and was on his way. That's what really got me out of this episode, enough to start letting them help me at a distance, of course. We all ended up in the back office, as they called the EMT, because I was in shock and was completely white. I'm very pale, but bloodless has a different kind of pale, and my heart rate went bonkers and almost fainted. I got my meds out of my purse, took it and waited as the EMTs came in to do their job. The cop who was with me was a war veteran and knew exactly what was going on, how to not set me off, what to ask, and so on. The entitled person was in a different area and was still going insane about the psychotic employee who attacked her and all sort of threats. So when hubby got there, he heard what she was yelling and told the cops. He knew I would press charges on anyone who grabbed me and treated me like that. Turns out that another cop over with the entitled person was a distant cousin of my hubby. Same last name from the same great-great-grandfather or something. They talked a bit outside the room and I guess Karen overheard that he was my hubby. So she tried to blame my hubby for my PTSD attack because he must have abused me. Hubby disabused that notion by laying down some facts, explaining why I freaked out, what happened to me, that I was a minor at the time and that it was before we met. Hubby says he also called her an idiotic hag as he left. The information he laid down managed to shut her up temporarily, but didn't stop her entirely. Then hubby came in to comfort me and help me. Police finally asked once I was calm enough if I wanted to press charges, and I did, of course. They had already seen the recordings from the security footage by that point, so only needed me to tell them what happened and to confirm why I freaked out. As for Karen, she was told she was being arrested, and she started up the banshee screaming again. The store manager said he would be banning her for her behavior indefinitely. And at some point during that mess, Karen's kid, the teenage girl, showed up frantic, looking for her mom. The mall security had escorted her and made quite a ruckus. I felt bad for the kid then, saw her as she waited for her dad with security when we were escorted out into the public part of the store. Karen kept up saying that I'm innocent and this is a misunderstanding, and then threatening me for doing this to her all the way until court. Supposedly, I really thought I would have to testify for a while, which was very stressful. The prosecutor's office called me a couple months later to tell me that she was taking the deal after the CCTV footage and the photographic proof of the ripped shirt and the huge bruise she gave me. It was a bad case that would be expensive to fight for her to only lose with that evidence. She was a first-time offender, so she got the option to do a program where they do intensive personal and some group psychotherapy, anger management, rehab, support groups, community service, and such depending on the offenses. She took it in as part of the deal, but she had to plead guilty in court in front of the judge beforehand. So not testifying for me is definitely a win. I was very grateful for that. One last bit of justice happened though. Her work found out, and due to a clause in her contract, they fired her immediately. Found out about that from the prosecutor too. Haven't heard about her since and never bothered to check up on her. She did her sentence and wasn't important anymore. By the way, I still hate hosiery. And this wasn't the only time someone grabbed me in public and I freaked out on them. Most recently was this last summer also. Sorry it was very long, I tried to trim it down without taking out too much of the needed information. I do still go to therapy, support groups and such, and have since the gang assault happened 20 years ago. You don't get over something like this, but I'm managing pretty well for the most part. Edit. This was in the greater Phoenix metro area and it happened over a dozen years ago. So I'm doing much better for those concerned. I could get a service dog for crowding, but they are expensive and insurance doesn't like to cover them if they aren't for the blind. I've had a lot of time to recover, so the need isn't there as much for it to justify the costs. And then there is the fact that I'm slightly allergic to dogs. For your information, writing this took a lot emotionally. And just putting it in text was very blatant. I didn't need to add to that. But this has been cathartic though. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.